Is a tiny amount of carbs going to ruin your fast? No, but very quickly, every gram of carb that you have, and this is non-fibrous carb, does have a decrease in the effectiveness of your fast to a certain point, at which it's impossible to determine. So I think because fasting is already a big deal, we're going out of our way to do it. It seems silly to not maximize the benefit, right? The downside, it's not really downside, but the thing to realize is collagen peptides are not a complete protein. Even though it says protein on it, it's not a complete protein, meaning it's not ideal. It's not the kind of protein you would build muscle with, per se. So there's two main things that we're trying to accomplish with fasting. It's the reduction in our insulin levels. And then secondarily, it's the cellular autophagy, right? Reducing our insulin levels is in of itself a good thing because that promotes fat loss, but also reducing our insulin levels is how you heal resistance, insulin resistance, which then gives you more lower levels of insulin, right? So that out of the two things is number one primary, is fixing the insulin resistance. You guys should know that by now, which is why I'm so aggressive about the long fasting plus going keto for a few months. So when we look at macronutrients, meaning the three sources of calories, fat, protein, and carbs. So fat has almost a negligible effect on insulin, basically none. Protein has moderate. And now within protein powders are higher, whole food protein, very low. And then carbohydrates is high. And then within carbohydrates, you have your healthier carbs, which are a little bit lower. And then you have your processed carbohydrates, which are very high. And then obviously sugar. So sugar, high fructose corn syrup, any sort of processed chips, carbs, all that stuff, very high on the insulin index and the glycemic index. And this is where fasting gets really tricky because having 4 grams of carb, right? Let's just say 4 grams of a moderate level carb. How much does that ruin your fast? There's no studies on this. Like nobody can tell you from a pure scientific basis how much that ruins the fast. What I can tell you, in my opinion, based off of the mechanisms, is there's an exponential decrease in the benefit of the fast with every gram of protein you take. And I hope that makes some amount of sense. Like, in other words, is a tiny amount of carbs going to ruin your fast? No, but very quickly, every gram of carb that you have, and this is non-fibrous carb, does have a decrease in the effectiveness of your fast to a certain point, at which it's impossible to determine. So I think because fasting is already a big deal, we're going out of our way to do it. It seems silly to not maximize the benefit, right? And maximizing the benefit means having zero carbs. So because fat is very negligible on insulin, that's why I'm okay with your fish oil. And fish oil is obviously has its own essential nutrients that it's providing, specifically DHA and EPA. But then when we look at nut pods, has only fat in it. And that's why I'm a big fan of it. It comes from almond and coconut. Got no carb and no protein. Sometimes people ask about half and half is definitely a lot better than a lot of the other crap that you get out there, completely unsweetened half and half. But half and half has some dairy in it, has some carbs. And dairy in particular, actually, even though is low glycemic wise, the carbohydrates, it's actually one of those weird things where it's high on the insulin. So you got to be careful with the low fat dairies. Generally, the insulin index will follow the glycemic index, meaning anything that raises blood sugar, you would expect a high insulin response. But then there's these secret foods that are not high on the blood sugar, but happen to be high on the insulin index. So, and low fat dairy is one of them. So that's why half and half, just stay away from that during your fasting windows. Stick with nut pods. If you don't need anything great, I think nut pods is fine. Technically speaking, fat bombs. Now let's talk about that because that kind of relates. A fat bomb would just be more than 10, 20, 30 calories. Let's say you had 200 calories of fat, right? I talk about that as a strategy to help somebody who's dealing with high levels of hunger. Maybe you're not on the med, or maybe you are on the med, but you're just struggling still and you don't have any appetite suppressing supplements. A fat bomb is on my list, right? Of like last option, appetite suppression. And so even 200 calories of fat, for example, to get you through a 24-hour fast is still way better than breaking your fast with carbs. And you'll still have that maximum insulin lowering effect. So the reason why I don't say go for your bulletproof coffee which is the thing that Dave Asprey made. Phenomenal for you when you're in weight maintenance and you're in the FLOA lifestyle. Do that all you want if you like it. It's where you're blending MCT oil and grass-fed butter or heavy whipping cream. Pure, high-quality Kelowna cream is great. But right now, we're not in the lifestyle for a lot of you guys. We're in the fat burning zone. And I want you burning the fat on your belly and not the fat on your cup. So that's putting it all together. A lot of information to just give you my coffee creamer recommendation, but I wanted you guys to really understand why I'm such a fan of that. Let's talk about collagen peptides, right? And collagen protein and where that fits into the equation. So I have a video on Flow University where I talk about protein sources. Yes, nut pods do taste good, Scarlett. I think they taste great. But anyways, so the collagen peptides. So collagen protein, collagen peptides are great for hair, skin, nails, that sort of category of things, which we all, right? We want to have better skin, better nails, better hair. And so a lot of great benefit to that. The downside, it's not really downside, but the thing to realize is collagen peptides are not a complete protein. Even though it says protein on it, it's not a complete protein, meaning it's not ideal. It's not the kind of protein you would build muscle with per se. Although your body can take, this gets really complex, but your body can take non-essential proteins and mix them with other non-essential or non-complete proteins and put them together. For example, you might have heard rice and beans together make a complete protein because each of them have in together the full spectrum of amino acids, and you need complete protein to build muscle mass, to protect muscle mass. Collagen could be easily mixed with other things you're eating to end up being utilized as a complete protein. That's why it's not a waste, right? I'm a fan of it. Just don't rely on collagen peptides. Keep that as a portion, right? Remember, ideally, you should be getting as much of your protein from whole food, but supplement when necessary. I'm always taking a post-workout shake for me after my weightlifting session, which if you're in the lifestyle or getting closer to the lifestyle, that's when you can start really prioritizing the muscle. And we can start talking about that sort of stuff for people that are already there. So I will definitely take protein powder there. But outside of that, the only time I'm doing protein powder is if I'm convenience, right? If I don't have enough food available to me, or I didn't prepare, or the meal I have doesn't have enough protein. And I'll try to alternate my protein sources between whey. I'll do some collagen, and I just happen to add collagen in my coffee. The collagen peptides give it a creamy flavor too. And then every now and then I switch up the whey with some plant-based protein. But I'll never do plant post-workout because plant is going to have more beneficial fiber, more probiotics, more micronutrients that whey won't have, which is great for that benefit, but it won't be as high muscle building potential with the plant. It's complete, which is nice because they make them to be complete, but you won't have as much muscle building potential, or in your guys' case, muscle protecting effect, which is what we're trying to do during your weight loss program. So putting that all together, that's how we approach collagen peptides.
So like this last week and this week, I'm like really focused on making sure I get my calories and my protein in. And I also don't want to eat super, super late at night. So I had a particular day last week that I didn't hit my like calorie and protein goal. And usually I have this like around 7:00 at night. I make up like whatever I didn't get with a protein shake. And I'm either going to do like a scoop or a scoop and a half. And that kind of bridges the gap of what I missed for the day. The day that I missed, I was running around taking my grandson around, and I just got home really late. What's the lesser of two evils? Should I make sure I get in my protein and my calories for the day, or should I eat super late at night? Does that make sense? Because I didn't want to eat at 10:00 at night.
Totally. And the answer is going to depend on what situation you're in. So you're in a reset right now. So I think the calories and protein matter a lot more than say when you're not in a reset. So if you're not in a reset, then I would say just worry about your protein, get that protein shake closer to bed, and then don't worry about being under your calorie goals because it's not a big deal. You'll burn a little extra fat. Just make sure the next day you don't have another under day and create that trend. Then adequate protein, I would still get that closer to bed. And when you're in a reset, that's where I would say your calories do matter significantly because you're trying to get through it. But I still wouldn't say like you want to eat a ton before bed. So it's really interesting. So I used to be really in the mindset that it's like really detrimental to eat within 3 hours. But then with the recent research that I've seen, it may not be as bad as we thought, but it's still probably not ideal. So I think we have to look at it and make a decision, find a middle ground. If it's just a couple hundred calories, small amount that you need to, go for it during the reset so you hit your goal. But if you way offshot it, like you're 1,000 lower than what you're supposed to, let's just say extreme example, I wouldn't try to force down 1,000 calories, but I would put down as much as you comfortably can that you think wouldn't create this like overbearing bloating feeling, and now your sleep is compromised. So
Yeah.
in that situation, in that situation, you're screwed both ways, like affecting your sleep, not hitting your calorie goals for the reset. So find a middle ground to try to offset both. But again, going back to the non-reset category, I think that getting your protein in is important, and then just let the rest of it and just enjoy that extra deficit you got that day.
Yeah. In this, I opted that day. I'm like, I'm just going to skip it. It made me like shy 200 calories and off by 30 grams of protein. I'm like, and then I'm going to ask because I'm pretty good at hitting most of it during the day. Like I have it figured out to pretty much a good thing that like I'm just supplementing at night with a protein shake around 7 o'clock. And the question is it like a scoop of protein or a scoop and a half of protein that I need to like make that last little bit?
Yeah.
I just was a little late on my protein shake for the night.
Yeah, no.
So,
And I think, Don, you said you actually are losing weight during your reset. Is that
oh my
right?
gosh, you guys trust the process. And I'm only in a reset like preventative, right? I wasn't stalling. We had just had a conversation that based on the calories that I was intaking, I was likely going to plateau if I didn't do something different. So we were like, let's do a mini reset. So up to my calories, a couple hundred calories per day, and still lost a half a pound. So
Yeah.
freaking trust the process, everybody.
Yeah.
And get your calories and protein in.
I'm also in a reset, and
cool.
my issue is that I'm having trouble hitting the caloric intake for a couple of reasons. I'm working at a functional medicine doc, and they've got me on gluten-free and dairy-free. So because I'm gluten-free and dairy-free now, I'm finding my options are less.
Yeah.
And like I used to rely on cottage cheese and fruit in the morning. That was a big one for me. And I've been trying to just do good fats, avocado, that kind of thing. And I'm also, so my situation was a little unique because I am in a plateau, and I came from another health coach who was upping my peptide. I'm backing off on the peptide, but I have zero appetite. And it's really hard to choke food down when you don't want to eat. So it's been really complicated for me to get calories in. Last week was much more rough. This week I've been a little bit more regimented and been able to focus more, but it's weaning down the peptide and finding that sweet spot where I'm still able to eat a little bit more and I'm not feeling so full, because that's what I'm finding too, is I feel ridiculously full and then I get sick. I feel sick.
Yeah. Just to be clear, you're saying the last coach program you were working with kept upping your GLP-1?
Yeah. So they were lowering my calories and increasing my GLP-1. I was on 12.5 milligrams of trizepatide and I was 1,300 calories. I was stalling out, and I've been stalled out now for about a month. The last call we had, I thought I was going to start going down. So I did go down to 10, and I'm going to slowly try to wean down off the peptide a little bit more. But I'm also in this plateau where I'm afraid I'm going to gain weight. I've lost 30 pounds since October of last year, but
awesome.
So slow.
Yeah, no. And thank you for sharing that. That's a great opportunity for everybody to learn. And so you're doing a lot right now. You're doing my program and you're working with a functional, which is awesome. That's my background. As you can tell, I just want to focus in this sort of path, but being able to work with functional, there's going to be a lot of agreement between what they're saying and what I'm saying. So I think the appetite is going to come back when it comes back. That's the reality of it. You said your last one, you went from 12 to 10. Is that right? The last injection?
Yeah. I actually, it was a dose yesterday and I decreased it to 10. That was the first time I bumped it down to 10.
It's a catch-22, right? Because you want to get your appetite back faster, decrease at a faster rate. The worst thing that's going to happen, and that's the catch-22, is you might unlike what that feels like. But I think if you want to be conservative about it, 2.5 every week. If you want to be a little faster, I think 5. Given that you're in a reset, I honestly think, and you can ask their opinion as well, but I honestly think jumping a 5 as a decrease wouldn't be too much of a problem for you, because you're already eating the right types of food. And right now we need that hunger on our side. So it's just a matter of, if you feel comfortable with taking a bigger leap in that decrease, go for it. And I think you're going to like it. The potential is it might be maybe too much hunger, but I doubt that. Or you just stay on course. There's nothing wrong with taking longer in a reset other than just having to be more patient. If the reset takes freaking 6 weeks or 7 weeks because you're having to slowly titrate down just to get enough hunger, just to be able to hit your macro calories, then so be it. That's how long it's going to take for you to get to the reset. But the only other way is being creative to somehow force yourself to get more food, which ultimately I know your list is probably really restrictive, and really blending smoothies is the only way I know to just try to get maximal calories down. Avocado, coconut milk, and blending it with as much protein powder, avocado, coconut milk right there can already be pretty dense. And throwing in some other dense foods is probably the best advice I can give you in the situation right now that you're in, which is trying to hit your goals.